द्विजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा यमुना तीरा जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी चरवाधा गिरिवरधारी गोपी चरवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा यमुना तीरा जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे जय राधा रासबिहारी राधा रासबिहारी राधे जय गौरांगी गौरीश्वर गौरांगी जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा सुभद्रा माई जय सुदर्शन जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय अनंत देव प्रहलाद नरसिंह जय अनंत देव जय निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य निताय चैतन्य जय निताय चैतन्य जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजाचार्य स्तोत्र शतक His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnaravind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय। ISKCON founder Acharya, BBD founder Acharya, savior of the whole universe, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Parivrajak Stotana Shata. His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Jai Shri Roop Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Shat Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण चंद्र गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन महाराज की जय. मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय. मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय. श्री क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय. गंगा माई की जय. जमुना माई की जय. कावेरी माई की जय. भक्ति देवी की जय. तुलसी महारानी की जय. समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय. हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. शततीला एकादशी महामहोत्सव की जय. निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरि हरि बोल. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Wishing all the devotees a wonderful Shakti Ekadashi. Today is a very auspicious day, and we will also be speaking about the Shatratila Ekadashi as we move on during our discussion today. So today we're going to be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, and the text number is from 40 to 42. And just give me 1 minute to open up this one. Okay, I can share this. Oh, Prabhu's already shared. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraje. Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pindundayatim Gramyat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. So we'll read the 40th shloka. Vaishrambake Surasena Nandane Pushpa Bhadrake Manase Chaitrate Cha Sarame Ramya Ratan. Vaishrambika Surasena Nandane Pushpa Bhadrike Manase Chaitrate Cha Sarame Ramya Ratan. Vaishrambika Surasene Nandane Pushpabhadrike Manase Chaitrante Cha Sareme Ramyaratan. So we'll have the word-to-word translation. Vaishrambake, in the Vaishrambaka garden. Surasene, in Surasena. Nandane, in Nandana. Pushpabhadrike, in Pushpabhadrika. Manase, by the Manasa Sarovara lake. Chaitrate, in Chaitratya. Cha, and Saha, he. Reme, enjoyed. Ramaya, by his wife. Rataha, satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed in that aerial mansion, not only on Mount Meru, but in different gardens known as Vaishrambake, Surasena, Nandana, Pushpabhadrika, and Chaitra Ratya, and by Manasa Sarovar Lake. We will also move to the next verse. We will straight go into the translation of the next verse, 41st verse. He traveled in that way through the various planets as the air passes uncontrolled in every direction, coursing through the air in that great and splendid aerial mansion which could fly at his will. He surpassed even the demigods. Purport to this 41st shloka is, the planets occupied by the demigods are restricted to their own orbits, but Kartama Muni, by his yogic power, could travel all over the different directions of the universe without restriction. The living entities who are within the universe are called conditioned soul, and this is, they are not free to move everywhere. We are inhabitants of this earthly globe. We cannot move freely to other planets. In modern age, man is trying to go to other planets, but so far he has been unsuccessful. It is not possible to travel to any other planets because by the laws of nature, even the demigods cannot move from one planet to another. But Kardam Muni, by his yogic power, could surpass the strength of the demigods and travel in space in all directions. The comparison here is very suitable. The words Yatha Anila indicate that as the air is free to move anywhere without restriction, so Kardam Muni unrestrictedly traveled in all directions of the universe. Let's also take the next verse, the 42nd verse. Translation of the 42nd verse. What is difficult to achieve for determined men who have taken refuge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet? His feet are the source of sacred rivers like the Ganges, which put an end to the dangers of mundane life. The word Yasai Ashrita Tirthapadas Charana are significant here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Tirthapada. The Ganges is called a sacred river because it emanates from the toe of Vishnu. The Ganges is meant to eradicate all the material stresses of the conditioned souls. Therefore, nothing is impossible for any living entity who has taken shelter of the holy lotus feet of the Lord. Kardam Muni is special not because he was a great mystic, but because he was a great devotee. I want this to be understood very well. Kardam Muni is special not because he was a great mystic, but he was great because he was a great devotee. Therefore, it is said here that for a great devotee like Kardam Muni, nothing is impossible. Although yogis can perform wonderful feats, as Kardam Muni has already displayed, Kardam Muni was more than a yogi because he was a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore, he was more glorious than the ordinary yogi. As it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, out of many yogis, he who is devoted to me, or he who is devotee of the Lord is first class. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. For a person like Kardam Muni, there is no question of being conditioned. He was already liberated soul and better than the demigods, who are also conditioned. Although he was enjoying with his wife and many other women, he was above material conditional life. Therefore, the word Vyasam Ditya is used to indicate that he was beyond the position of a material conditioned soul. He was transcendental in all material limitations. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, text number 40, 41, and 42. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshururmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadhana Raghunatambitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vichakamatamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानु सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed in that aerial mansion not only in Mount Meru but different gardens known as Vaishrambaka, Surasena, Nandana, Pushpabhadraka, and Chaitratya, and by the Manasanovar lake. So here again, beautiful description which has been given about the qualities of the devotees and the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada very clearly mentions that Gautam Muni, the great yogi, we would not call him only yogi, we would call him a great devotee of the Lord. He could do anything. In the current material world, people try to take aircraft from one place to another place, and we also see some crashes happening. Yeah, 2 days back, we saw a crash of an aircraft, but that is not the condition that happens when it is in the spiritual world. Spiritual world, everything is perfect. There is nothing called an accident. There is nothing called any mishap that happens. Kardam Muni is here described very clearly, saying that he is even greater than the demigods. Why is he called greater than the demigods? Because we see that Kardam Muni could travel at his will. Demigods also have restrictions in traveling. Human beings have restriction. Human beings have very, very small area within which we can perform our activities. People think we are independent, but we are not independent at all. Even to travel from one country to another country, you need a visa. You cannot travel otherwise. So as we move forward from the human beings, if we go one step, so human beings, as we described, cannot move even from one country to another country freely. They need a visa to travel to other country. They need permission. They need government permission there. They go through so many formalities which they require. At the same time, demigods have a little better power, yeah, because they are elevated souls. And again, demigods are all great devotees of the Lord. So demigods have this permission of traveling within the planet. Anywhere within the planet they can travel, but they can't travel beyond that. But here, Kardam Muni can travel anywhere. You know, with his thought that he wants to travel somewhere, he gets onto his Viman and then he travels. He can just travel like that. And it is also described in the purport saying that he can travel like the air travels. The air has no restriction. You know, air can travel from India to US, it can travel to UK, it can travel to any parts of the world. But likewise, Kardam Muni can travel from anywhere to anywhere, and he has absolutely no restrictions whatsoever. So, Kardam Muni, being a great devotee of the Lord, can take his own decision. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, 8th verse, Krishna says, I am the power of the whole creation, and he can empower. So today, if there is somebody who has power, can empower. Today, the country, the prime minister of the country has a lot of power. He can empower anybody to become a minister. He can empower anybody to become, departmental head. He can empower somebody to do anything. Likewise, Krishna very clearly says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarva pravartate iti matva bhajante mam udva bhava samavita. Says very clearly in the translation that I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Please understand that, Krishna doesn't talk about only spiritual world. He also talks about I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. So, whatever comes out, whatever you see in the material world as well as the spiritual world, everything comes out of Krishna. Everything emanates from him. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So Krishna very clearly says that, whatever requires to be done, whatever permission is required to be done, whatever requires to be done on, whether in the spiritual world or in the material world, everything emanates from me. And those who are wise, who is a wise person? A wise person is a person who knows the fact of life and acts according to the facts of life. Or he acts as per the Shastras, because Shastras are perfect. There is absolutely no black spot on the Shastras. So a wise person is a person who knows the Shastras and acts according to the Shastras. So here, there's another example that can be quoted is the drop of ocean is also similar to the ocean. From wherever you drink, whether you drink, you pick up a drop of water from Indian Ocean, or be it the Arabian Sea, or be it anywhere, or the Atlantic Ocean. If you taste it, the drop of the ocean is the same quality as the whole ocean, but it is different in quantity. We are automatically attracted to the higher source. Like we get attracted to beautiful people, we get attracted to handsome people, we get attracted to rich, we get attracted to the famous person. That's a human nature. There's nothing that can be against it. And there are also some people who can bring out ashes from their hand. What is a big thing in getting an ash from the hand? It is very important that if somebody can give life to somebody, become Krishna conscious, that's a magic that somebody can do. But we find that some people, when they become a little big, a little handsome, or a little rich, then we start automatically getting attracted to them. And like we said, the example of the ocean, the water, wherever you pick up, it's the same. Likewise, we are also part and parcel of Krishna. It's just that quantitatively we are not as big, but qualitatively we are same. Whatever taste that you make of a single drop from the Arabian Sea or Indian Ocean, it tastes the same as the whole water. So we find that when there is something wonderful, as by the laws of nature, it's actually beyond our imagination. Human beings are also very restricted in their approach. They are restricted in their approach when we compare it to the demigods, because demigods can travel to anywhere, but human beings cannot travel. And what we are seeing is also very limited, because our view, our naked eyes, or whatever is the view that we have, is also very, very little. And the emphasis is on seeing. Seeing is believing is what we talk in this material world. When you talk to somebody, did you see it? Then you believe it. No, but then there are examples which are given, there are descriptions which are given in Shastras, and then we have to consider them very well. We are actually conditioned in seeing it the certain way. None of us can actually see the radiation. Can anybody see the radiation with their naked eyes? No, we cannot see. We can't even see the signals of our mobile phones and all other things. So we are actually restricted. We are conditioned in the way that we really see. There is a very good exercise. I don't know, in the management, some of you must have gone through the old lady, young lady exercise. You're shown a picture of, to a group of people within that same hall. Some of them are asked to, close their eyes, and the others are shown a picture of a lady. And the other group is shown the same picture. And when you show a combined picture of that, some people in that hall see it as a young lady, and some people in that hall see it as an old lady. That is because we are conditioned, because the first picture which is shown to limited people shows that it was a young lady who's looking at some place. And the other picture which is shown shows an elderly lady who's aged and all of that. So we're conditioned in our ability to exploit the resources of the material nature. We are very, very limited. So here, as we move forward in the third shloka, it is said Tirthapada. What is Tirthapada? That is because the Lord, everything emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord. The Ganges, the wonderful river who takes care of so many devotees. We wash away our sins when we talk about taking a dip in Ganges. So Mother Ganges actually emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord, and that's why it is called Tirthapada. And the cities that we live are actually fortresses of Maya, and the impact of Harinam has a very, very subtle impact on it. Many devotees, this I've heard from a very nice devotee who spoke about Harinam in Melbourne, in Australia. He says, after a long time, I visited the Harinam party, and there were about 6 or 8 of us, less than a dozen. And we were doing our Harinam as we would do across the city. And I noticed that people were oblivious. They were not even worried about what is happening. These devotees were going on chanting the holy name of the Lord. They were doing the Harinam, going around and coming back. And they came back, and he was actually reflecting on what he saw. When we do Harinam, the maximum benefit that comes is to the devotees. Yes, the devotees went around, in the city of Melbourne to do the Harinam. There were hundreds of people on the streets, hundreds of people were traveling. They could see them, they could hear them. But the benefit that happens is on a very, very subtle platform. And the devotees who did the Harinam at the end of the day, because they chanted, they heard, so they get the maximum benefit of the Harinam which they did. Similarly, an opportunity that is given to absorb ourselves in more deeper studies. The benefit is to us when we give, say, Srimad Bhagavatam class. It is very important that they read the subject, they actually get deeply absorbed into the subject matter. So the benefit that is coming is higher to the devotee who is giving it. Likewise, when Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, everybody got benefited. But the maximum benefit that was derived, it's quoted that Shukadeva Goswami got the maximum benefit of reading the Srimad Bhagavatam because he had to speak about this. He had to read it, speak about it, recollect it, and then speak about it. So, Krishna also says, those who preach the holy name are the dearest to me. The most dear is the one who actually preaches my holy name. And here we see why did Kartam Muni did not ask for liberation. Yeah. Again, many times we have subtle questions which come up to our mind as to why this happened, why that happened. So one may think that Kartam Muni had so much of power, why he did not ask for the liberation. The most important part in this happens is to enjoy. Devotee also comes. There are many times, let's take the example of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada could have stayed in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. He was a perfect devotee. He did not have to go anywhere else. And he had this constant, engagement of discussion with all the Vaishnavas in our parampara. He also had constant engagement with the deities. Srila Prabhupada would speak to the deities. At many occasions, Srila Prabhupada is told that, there was one occasion where Srila Prabhupada was just smiling. So devotees asked him, Srila Prabhupada, what happened? So he says, I was enjoying the dance of Gaur Nitai, but nobody else could see it. Yeah. So I'm saying Srila Prabhupada was an elevated soul. Srila Prabhupada was a great devotee, and he could have perfected. He was already a perfected soul, and he could have continued to stay in Radha Damodar and then, leave his material body and still go back home, back to Godhead. But he did not directly ask for the liberation. It is said to enjoy according to the current condition and to aspire and complete our work and go back home, back to Godhead. So there is a game plan which is already decided for the devotees, that it is very important that we stay in our current condition, we stay in our, responsibilities. Some of us are responsible for our own families. Some of us, there are some brahmacharis who are responsible for certain other things. There are pujaris who are responsible for certain other things. So in the current condition, whether we are in grahastha ashram, we are in sannyas ashram, or we are in vanaprastha ashram or brahmacharis, we have to complete our work which has been assigned to us, and then think of going back home, back to Godhead. Because the current condition that we are put into is put in by the Lord himself. Like Kardam Muni would have gone back home. But then why the Lord continued to guide us, in the whole chapter that we see, and in this canto also, we see the whole conversation between Kardam Muni and Mother Devahuti, it just goes on. And here, in the last 3 shlokas that we are discussing today, Kardam Muni could happily go around to all the places and enjoy. One must be thinking that, he was going into Nandana, he was going into the different gardens which are mentioned here, and he was actually enjoying. Pushpabhadrika, Surasena, beautiful places. You can't even think of them. Forget about thinking. You can't even describe such places where Kardam Muni could travel along with his wife. And the wife was also satisfied, and they enjoyed. And in this aerial mansion that is talking about, they were traveling, and not only on Mount Meru, not only on the Manasarovar lake that they went, they traveled everywhere and they were happily enjoying it. So one may think that, oh, why is he enjoying? One may think that, why is Kardam Muni shown here to be enjoying the senses? No, that is not the way that the devotees have to look at it. The opportunity that is given to us, and we have to absorb ourselves more deeper into the subject matter, which is Krishna consciousness, and to enjoy according to the current condition. And then the aspiration is to complete our work which has been given to us and go back home, back to Godhead. The best solution to control our mind is to absorb the mind in the service of the Lord, or absorb our mind in Krishna consciousness. And how can that happen? How can one absorb his mind in the service of the Lord? Or how can one complete his work into the current condition? Is to absorb ourselves in the service of the Lord. And service of the Lord is Krishna consciousness. The first and foremost is to having a good japa. Every morning, it is repeated. Some of us get bored traveling by the same roads every day. When we take the same road to the office, we get bored. You feel, every day I have to take the same road. So we take different roads. But then there is no alternate to having a good japa in the morning. Secondly, to read. To absorb ourselves in reading is the second most important thing. Every day we have to read the same subject matter. And multiple times you will read, Srila Prabhupada says, you're not this body, you're the spirit soul, you're not this body, you're the spirit soul. But how many of us realize saying that I'm not this body and I'm the spirit soul? We may realize it momentarily for some time. But again, we go back and then, we think we are the body, we're doing this for the body, then we take care of our body very well. Yes, I'm not denying the fact that one should not take care of their body. The body is important for us because it is the carrier of the soul. And unless and until you have a good carrier, if your body is sick, you may not be able to take care of your soul very well. You may not be able to practice consciousness very well. But at the same time, how many of us have completely realized that we are not this body and we are the spirit soul? No. So then we need to go back to our basics. Again, reading is the most important. And as I said earlier, preaching is another important question, because when you have to preach somebody, you have to also be knowledgeable. You have to also understand what's happening. You have to also understand the subject matter. You have to dwell harder into it. You have to dwell stronger into it. You have to dwell deeper into the subject matter when you have to preach. So again, your reading becomes very, very strong. Your japa becomes very, very strong when you try to preach others. And the fourth thing, again, very important, is associating with devotees. How are we associating with devotees? Most of the time when we are associating with our devotees, we ask them, how's your family doing? How's your wife doing? How's your husband doing? How's your child doing? What is your child studying? All kinds of activities which is not giving us any enthusiasm to progress on Krishna consciousness. Can we think of discussing with our devotees when we meet them, saying that, what did you read from Srimad Bhagavatam today? Oh, you were reading the chapter which talks about devotional service. Again, this is a conversation between, where Mother Devahuti is asking, what is the quality of a devotee? And how does one engage himself or herself in devotional service? Am I asking questions about what happened in Chaitanya Charitamrita when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Or am I asking the questions, or am I inquiring with devotees when I meet about the conversation that happened between Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami? Am I asking the conversation which actually happened when Raghunath Bhatta Goswami traveled for preaching? So these are the kind of association one needs to really talk about, rather than talking about the material things, which college is he studying, where do you stay, all such things. Yes, you need to exchange pleasantries. That's absolutely fine. But when we talk, we should stay away from talking mundane things. We should stay away from talking the worldly matters. Because that limited time that we get, can anybody give me back 8 o'clock 30 minutes of the 18th of January 2023 today? You cannot. What is lost is lost. So please understand this very importantly, that whatever time is elapsed, you cannot have it back. So whatever time that you have, whatever limited time that all of us have, we should make the use of it in the best possible way. In the best possible way that we can serve, we can engage, we can work around with our spiritual life. So that's the kind of association one needs to really look at. Apart from that, serving or engaging ourselves into how I could be a better servant of the spiritual master, which is the most important thing. Some of us cannot serve our spiritual master in Vapu, but are we serving our spiritual master in Vani? And the most easiest service is to serve a spiritual master in Vani, because you have no restrictions. You can hear your spiritual master. You can, read about your spiritual master. You can, talk about your spiritual master in isolation also. There is no restriction. At the same time, the biggest advantage that you get when you serve your spiritual master in Vani is that you don't commit aparadh. There are many times when we are serving our spiritual master in Vapu, in his physical form, we may tend to do, aparadh in thinking that he's a body. No. So here we have to think that how I could be better servant of my spiritual master as I move on to my spiritual path. And I can serve my Guru Maharaj, I can serve my spiritual master in either Vapu or Vani. At the same time, one has to really also think, how can I perform my material duties in the service of Krishna? Now, many times we are perplexed saying that, how can I perform my material duties in the service of Krishna? I'm not confusing here with your spiritual duties and your material duties. We are talking about how do we perform our material duties. We have taken this material body, so we have material duties we have. Can I take care of my parents very well? And am I making my parents Krishna conscious in whatever little way? I'm also responsible for my wife. I'm also responsible for my children. I'm also responsible for my work that I do. I'm also responsible for my extended family. I'm also responsible for the society that I live in. But that doesn't mean that I leave everything and then start constructing hospitals, I start constructing old age homes. No. Am I focusing in the material world on my duties with the service of Krishna, which is very important. So if I'm in Grahastha ashram, am I bringing up my children in a nice way that they also become Krishna conscious? It is very nicely said that, if one should not become a father, a husband, or a guru if he is not able to liberate his children. And when we say liberate, he is not able to give Krishna consciousness to their children or their family, or one should not become a guru if he is not able to give Krishna consciousness to their disciples. Here, the main focus is to develop our relationship with Krishna. Again, in, we read in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, and, the verse number is 37, where Krishna describes that the material world is more about passion. And it is only lust which is the cause of everything. And that lust is born because of our contact with the material modes. And especially passion. And later this turns or transforms into vrat, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy in this world. So when it comes to passion, you can go either way. You can go to goodness or you can go to ignorance. You are somewhere in the focal point. By the prescribed methods, we can actually progress upwards and move towards goodness rather than going towards ignorance. And slowly, as we move forward, the prescribed method would diminish our mode of passion and ignorance. And please understand that simplicity is not only meant for only brahmacharis in the ashram. Yes, brahmacharis are meant to be very simple. They should not have too many opulent things, no opulent mobile, no opulent clothing, no opulent, bags and all such things. But simplicity is meant for all the ashramas. It is meant for grahastha ashram, it is meant for vanaprastha, and for sannyasi by default, simplicity is meant. And if we reduce our desire by simple living, we can connect everything to Krishna. We have to actually find the difference and go into the opposite direction of the sense enjoyment. When we go in the opposite direction of sense enjoyment, we actually get service attitude. They don't go well together. If you want to really enjoy your senses and also do service, no, it is not possible. We have to slowly start moving away from sense enjoyment, I, me, myself, to Krishna, devotees, and spiritual master. Yeah, we generally attach everything to saying I, me, myself. That's the sense enjoyment propensity that one looks at. But on the other side, when one starts moving towards the service attitude, he talks about Krishna, devotees, and the spiritual master. Here, Karda Muni is very nicely explaining us, or showing us how to dovetail our propensities in Krishna consciousness. Again, there's a contradiction that I would like to bring to your notice. And this is a very nice contradiction we should all understand. That if you are too attached to rules and regulations, it will destroy your bhakti. And if you don't follow rules and regulations, again, it will destroy our bhakti. Yeah. Only, this is what is to be done in bhakti. This is to be done in bhakti. That is to be done bhakti. Then, it will destroy your bhakti. Too much of rules and regulations. At the same time, if we don't follow rules and regulations of saying, for devotees, it is important that they take bath twice a day. They chant their prescribed, rounds on the beads. They read Srimad Bhagavatam. They follow 4 regulative principles. Again, your bhakti will be destroyed. So you have to follow the rules. At the same time, you have to ensure that there's a balance between how the spiritual life has to be. Don't go too much into the rules and regulations, and don't actually look at not following the rules and regulations. One needs to follow and have a very nice balance between it. And when we approach our spiritual master, it is said that's the beginning of an end of our material desire. Yeah. One needs to, when one really approaches the spiritual master, that is the beginning of end of our material desires. So think of this as very, thought-provoking sentence saying that when we approach our spiritual master, that's the beginning. Actually, that's the beginning of our spiritual path. And that's actually the end of our material desires as well. Because a spiritual master's job or his responsibility or his duty is to guide the disciple in the right direction and to achieve the desired success, which is Krishna Prema. So we have to speak like a learned man. At the same time, become somebody who's absolutely not knowing anything. So I'll give you another very nice example of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is having this conversation with Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami, we all know he was a great devotee, he was a very learned scholar, he was at a very high elevated position under the king of Bengal. But Sanatana Goswami went on making the statement saying that he did not know anything and he wanted to hear more and more and more instructions from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You take another contrary to this. Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was telling Krishna, saying that I know everything. And he went on arguing. How can I do this? My mind is not working like this. I can manage this, but I can do this. I cannot control my mind. I can control the wind which is flowing and all of that. So you see, at the end, I'm sure Arjuna also follows what Krishna says. He accepts whatever Krishna says. So why this example was given is basically we have to be like Sanatana Goswami. Yes, Arjuna is also a great devotee. In fact, he's the greatest of the devotee because he was non-envious of Krishna. That's the greatest quality of Arjuna, and he was a great friend of Krishna. So these are two major qualities what made Arjuna a great devotee of Krishna and the best of the friends. Yeah. So we have to all become like Sanatana Goswami, despite knowing we all have good education, we all have good upbringing, we all have good knowledge. But at the same time, we all still be like Sanatana Goswami, admitting that we do not know anything and learn from the spiritual master. So this is what I wanted to discuss about the subject matter today that we talk about in Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, 23rd chapter, 40 to 42nd verse, that Karda Muni is actually seen enjoying the material world. And as we rightly said, that devotees are beyond demigods as well. Demigods are also great devotees of the Lord, but then elevated souls are beyond all of this, and they do not think of any material enjoyment. They're always in the service of the Lord, and they're greater than the demigods because they can also travel anywhere. Like Narad Muni, a great devotee of the Lord, could travel anywhere. I would also like to probably take this opportunity. We still have some more time, so speak a little bit about today's Ekadashi. Today is Shatatila Ekadashi, and it's a very auspicious day. And there's a very nice story, and it is also said that this was a conversation between Pulatsa Muni and Dalabhaya Rishi. And in this conversation, Pulatsa Muni is replying to Dalabhaya Rishi actually, who is asking, saying that, as soon as the spirit soul comes in contact with the material energy, he starts doing all kinds of sinful activities. And the sinful activities could be killing, illicit sex, stealing, and there are many other bad activities that one may perform, even going up to killing a Brahmana, which is not good. So he's asking Pulatsa Muni as to what one needs to do. Or, he's asking him, even with a little charity, how can he be released from this material entanglement or get released from this material world? So Pulatsa Muni says that, this is a very auspicious Ekadashi, which comes in the month of Magha. Magha is between January and February. One should bathe carefully, controlling its senses and giving up lust, anger, pride, jealousy, fault finding, and greed. And one has to meditate upon the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And one should also gather some cow dung before it touches the ground. So, when the cow is giving the dung, then one needs to take it in his hand before it touches the ground. And one needs to add some sesame seeds and cotton to form 108 balls. Well, this is something which may be practically, sometimes you will find that may be difficult. And this can be done on only when certain constellation like Purva Ashadha Nakshatra arrives. But he gives a very nice story as we move forward, that it is very important that on this Ekadashi, one should perform activities. And on this Ekadashi, we could give out in charity to qualified brahmanas or to the temple or to wonderful devotees sweets made out of tila, that's sesame seeds. So sesame seeds, as we all know that there are 3 varieties and we use them in different activities. So for our homa, we use a black sesame seed. For giving it to brahmanas, either we use white or the cream ones. So that's what one needs to really do. And there's a very nice story Narad Muni asked as to how, we can really fast on this Ekadashi, or what are the benefits of this Ekadashi. So Lord Krishna actually replies saying that there was a very old Brahmani who worshipped Lord with, her controlled senses, and she was very faithful in observing all the Ekadashis or all, fastings that she would do on various days that we do fastings, including Janmashtami, Narsimha Chaturdashi, and various other festivals, Gaur Purnima, etc. And she served Lord Krishna with full devotional service and without any personal motive. her rigorous fasting actually made her very slim and, very weak, very thin. She gave in charity to Brahmanas and young Kanyas, young girls, and even planned to give away her house in charity. Now, the odd feature of this Brahmani was saying that she never gave food to Brahmanas or the Devas. Yeah. She would give a lot of charities to worthy people, a lot of donations to worthy people, but she never gave food to Brahmanas and Devas. So, the Lord was actually thinking what was happening. So one day Narad Muni actually guises himself as the follower of Lord Shiva and then goes to this lady's house and he's begging because he's skull draped all over his neck and he's begging with Kamandalu. So here, while begging, Krishna himself is begging here, and this lady, what she does was, she just takes a handful of mud, lump of mud, and puts it into the begging pot. That's the Kamandalu. Why did she do this? This lady has always been giving charity to everybody, but here, why did she do that? And at the end, this austere lady, Brahmani, reaches the spiritual world in her same body. And all the efforts, what she had done, that's because of the efforts of the fasting and the charity that she had. And because she had offered a lump of sand, the Lord transforms that lump of sand into a beautiful house. But this house did not have any furniture or grains because she never gave grain as a charity. So then this lady actually feels, she prays to Lord, why this happened? Oh, my Lord Janardana, why did you do this to me? So when she reaches the Lord says, please go back to your house. And then, there will be some ladies of the wives of the demigods who will come and ask you to open the house to see you. But then don't open your door unless they give you the pastimes of or the glories of the Shatatila Ekadashi. And when this ladies, the wives of the demigods come there, she doesn't open the house, but she says, please tell me what are the merits or what are the advantages or what are the good things that I'll do if I fast on or observe the sacred Satatila Ekadashi. And then the wives, one of the ladies responded and spoke about the great qualities of this Shatatila Ekadashi. And she said that one needs to give a lot of charity, one needs to give till the sesame seeds to qualified Brahmanas. And that's how one could achieve a better spiritual form. After hearing this, the Brahmini gets the form of, she gets a spiritual form, which is Sachidananda. And, by the mercy of Shatatila Ekadashi, both the lady and her new home actually got filled with, all the beautiful things like gold, silver, jewels, diamonds, and a lot of food grains. So here Lord Krishna says, Naradji, that a person should just not observe Ekadashi out of greed or just by hoping that I will attain wealth dishonestly or selflessly. He should simply donate the sesame seeds, clothes, and food according to his capacity. So one needs to follow the Ekadashi at the same time, also do some charity. You should give it to the qualified Brahmanas to achieve, good health, exalted spiritual consciousness, all of that. So one can be released from this bonds of this material world, liberation, which is called, and we go back home, back to Supreme Lord's abode by following Shatatila Ekadashi. So I wish all the devotees a wonderful Ekadashi, and, as Rupanugas, as the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to increase our chanting on Ekadashi, we have to increase our reading on Ekadashi, and as far as possible, abstain from eating. I'm sure because of health reasons, if somebody has to take, then it's okay. But otherwise, if you're healthy, you should not take grains and on Ekadashi. So there we will end our discussion today. If there are any questions, quickly, we have 2-3 minutes. I will take the questions. If there are no questions, then we will end our session. Thank you very much for your patient hearing and wishing you all a wonderful Shatatila Ekadashi. May you chant very well, may you read very well, may you associate very well, may you, donate very well today. Try and do this, going to the temple and giving some donation of till. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Prabhu.
Prabhu, can I ask a question, Prabhu?
Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhu. As you were saying in the class, first of all, it was a very wonderful class, Prabhu, very enlightening. And thanks for that. And moreover, like as you were telling about the rules and regulations that one not strictly follow, one can, need not follow some rules and regulations. And please enlighten more on this, because it was quite confusing when we say we should chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles. So how can we take it easily? Like, I don't. Please will enlighten more, Prabhu.
Very, very relevant question, Prabhu. I think to make it a little more clearer, thank you for asking this question. It is for the clarity of all the devotees. Basically, when we look at, if we just follow only rules, then we get involved into it and our bhakti doesn't come up. And when we don't follow the rules, again, bhakti doesn't come. So one needs to balance very well between the rules. I'm saying rules have to be followed. When we say 4 regulative principles have to be followed, it has to be followed. There's no exception to it. When 16 rounds have to be chanted for an initiated devotee, he has to chant 16 rounds. There's absolutely no question about that. But I'm saying we just get involved into rules. There are certain class of people who just follow rules and regulations, but then they do it. How do I say that? They just do it for the sake of following the rules and not for bhakti. The whole idea of rules and regulations is to purify ourselves and bring us to a level of bhakti and go up the ladder, go back home, back to spiritual world. But bhakti should not become your rules and regulations should not become a deterrent in your bhakti. Yeah, there are certain rules which says, again, these are made, they're not actually the rules. People say, there's a difference between all the 4 classes of society. The Shudras cannot enter the temple. So that's a rule which is made, which is actually wrong. So if we start focusing, oh, this man is a Shudra, he should not come to the temple. Oh, this man is a Shudra, he should not take prasadam with me. Oh, this man is a Shudra, he should not do deity worship. So these are unnecessary rules which are found by certain classes of Brahmanas, which actually divide the society. Whereas Srila Prabhupada brought into this, he went to the Western world where people are so-called Malechas. So-called, I'm saying not all of them. At the same time, he got all the people from the Western world. He taught them how to do deity worship. They actually became more purer than any of us in India. Yeah. So the whole idea of saying this is that rules should not become deterrent to your spiritual life. At the same time, you cannot be relaxed, as you rightly said. Rule is there. 16 rounds have to be chanted. 4 regulative principles have to be followed. It has to be followed. These are rules which have to be followed. We have to balance it very well. We cannot say just by the sake of rules, we don't follow spiritual life. We don't follow bhakti. So bhakti is very fine balance between to follow the rules and not to compromise on the rules. So this is what I meant, Prabhu. I hope that clarifies your doubt.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. But still that balance, it's hanging in my mind. I don't know how to balance it.
Okay, this balance will come when we pray to the spiritual master, which is very important.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Dandavat Pranam. Jai.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji.